Good afternoon and good evening, all. Thank you for tuning in to Up the Reds as we dive straight into the player ratings and man of the match report on the FA Cup third round victory, 4-1, between LFC and Shrewsbury Town FC, the fight Shrews. I already did a fairly in-depth deep dive on my game thoughts in the video linked above and in the description, so feel free to check that out if you feel like this episode kind of only goes an inch deep, mile wide on the subject. With that, I'm going to pull up here and we'll see if everything works well. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the starting lineup, and then that way we can kind of drop down here. I'm going to actually include a few stats here, just kind of Reader's Digest condensed version, a lot of what I went into in the analysis. So let's just take a look here. All right, so the team stats, let's just go through the lineup really quick. So Liverpool fielded Kelleher in the back along with Bradley, Ganate, Virgil, Andy Robertson. A very, very, very strong back line, considering. I mean, obviously Trent's not there, but Bradley has been in that position before and has done all right. Dixon Bonner, who I was not aware of and had not seen before. Fabinho, kind of in that center mid, kind of CDM, role as usual. Tyler Morton, Cade Gordon, Voltman, who was also another that I saw for the first time, and then obviously Curtis Jones in there as well. Let's go down to the substitutes. So for the substitutes, we had Firmino on the bench with Adrian, Takumi Minamino, Simicus, Joel Matip, Mabaya, who I was unaware of, James Norris, who I was unaware of, Balagizi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who I was unaware of, and then Frauendorf. Frauendorf, Norris, Simicus, Minamino, and Firmino would find their way into the match a little bit later on. Jurgen Klopp, interestingly enough, did stand on the touchline. We thought Peter was going to, but I guess he was able to get out of isolation just before. I do want to call everybody's attention to the information at the very bottom of the screen that's scrolling past. It speaks to some cattiness, but it speaks to some information about, I believe, Arsenal's the fan and kind of the manufactured outrage by AFTV as it relates to the Carabao Cup match. They did play Nottingham Forest today and got knocked out of the FA Cup. So poo-poo on you, and as you'll see in the message below, you can go fuck yourselves. So we'll move on to the actual player ratings now. This is the first time I'm doing this, so if I start clicking a bunch of weird shit on the screen and it pops up, I do apologize. But let's just kind of dive into some of the stats. I did say in my match analysis that I felt like the stats favored Liverpool heavily and weren't necessarily indicative of the game that we saw. Okay, so obviously with a 4-1 victory, if you saw Swindon and Man City the other day, you might think that it was a bit of a dominating affair, which simply really wasn't the case. And honestly, up until about the 70th minute, I think everybody in the stands was kind of pinching it off because as usual, Liverpool made it quite a bit harder on themselves than I think we had to. Now, that being said, we are certainly being conscientious of the COVID situation that all teams have had, and might have. So we certainly understand that LFC were depleted and that we're recovering, some positive COVID cases as well as some suspected and false positive cases that we're hearing about. Not a lot of information there, so I'm not going to dive too deep into it. But anyway, for the most part, I thought Shrewsbury did an okay job. So with that, let's kind of go through the stats, and then we'll dive into the actual player ratings, and then who I think is the man of the match. I do want to hear from you all in the comments below. Do you think that my player ratings are completely off? Do you disagree with me? And on top of that, do you also agree with my man of the match? My man of the match is fairly straightforward here. I'd be surprised if others kind of felt differently, but I'm still interested nevertheless. That's the point of this channel, is to create kind of an ongoing and open dialogue and conversation. And so with that, Liverpool actually kind of battered the front a bit. It was 19 shots. I'm not going to say on target. 19 shots versus the Shrews 4. 6 on target though versus the Shrews 2. So if it's a 4-1, I mean everybody was fairly prolific on the day for the opportunities that were actually on target. Possession was 84% for Liverpool. I think at one point it was even as high as 92%. It seemed as though the Shrews were perfectly happy, especially based on a lot of the early chances that they had following that goal. They were very happy in that 3-5-2, which tends to be more of an aggressive formation. They were very happy to kind of tweak it, sit back, as we've seen so often, kind of, more 9 men actually fully behind the ball. and then try to kind of work it out from there. We really didn't work the center. We did continue what has kind of been par for the course with respect to Liverpool in terms of recycling the ball from side to side, trying crosses, and everything else. There were a few opportunities that went up the center, and clearly, in my opinion, when you've got a 3-5-2, especially for center backs that may or may not be the best, I think you have to drive more centrally, try some shots from distance. And we just didn't really do a lot of that and have not. As it relates to passes, 857 passes for Liverpool, 166 for the Shrews, 89% passing accuracy, which was surprising, and then 57 for the Shrews. So they were just kind of a bit out as they went to that. 6 corners for Liverpool, and then 2 corner opportunities for the Shrews. So kind of jumping into it, let me pull this over here, and then we'll try not to screw this whole thing up. So I've already gone through Kelleher, and I've got my notes over here from this. So if I'm kind of looking back and forth, apologies for that. Kelleher, I thought, had a very good game. He's always very cool, calm, and collected. Very interested just to see where his career takes him. Obviously, I know he's got some competition in goal in the Irish national team, but honestly, I mean, the maturity for his age and really for the lack of games that he's had to play. I mean, he's been put in some cooker situations, especially like last week, or not last week, but the last round against Aston Villa. And he's really come up as really kind of taking that second spot under Allison, to Adrian's probably dismay. But even if he makes mistakes, he plays it off really well. I say in my other, video, I make a comparison to some coolness with Van Dyke. We go a bit further into it. Thought he had a good performance. Thought his positioning was fairly good. Thought he, as it related to their goal, I don't really feel like there's anything he was doing to stop that. And so, unfortunately, it got in there. So for him, I'm not going crazy with it. But for Kelleher, I'm not even going to attempt to say his first name. I think it's Queeman, maybe. But I always butcher it. I've gone as far as saying Koeman, Queeman. It doesn't really matter. So for him, I actually awarded him a 6.5. Player rating on that. So I gave him a 6.5 on the day. Nothing super crazy because I don't feel like he had a shit ton to do, obviously based on the stats. When he needed to be there to kind of sweep and clean up, he was there. I think there was only one bobble where he just kind of did some, a little weird, and that was kind of more of a defensive communication issue. So I look to them to kind of, sort it out. And in reality, I will say that for Liverpool fans that have paid attention over the past few years, as it relates to Adrian and as it relates to Karius, Kelleher's kind of a breath of fresh air, even compared to like a Mignolet going back a bit in terms of just I think being a bit more just kind of focused, and his reactions are just awesome. So I don't know. I feel like he's definitely an upgrade in that department, and I don't know that I feel comfortable with him. Like he's not going to jump into the lead role. But I feel like if Allison had to be out for something, then I'm not going to completely panic so long as he's got a strong front line. So let's just do this real quick. So the next player we're going to talk about is Robertson. I thought Robertson, and let me actually get down to him real quick. I thought Robertson, super quiet today. I feel like, after the red card he got, which was very uncharacteristic of him, it was very idiotic. I think he just saw red and just did whatever he had to do, and I think the red card was right and proper. His crossing's been fairly poor. It was a little bit better today, but it doesn't have the same whip, the same pace, and oftentimes it's really not even beating the first man, and we're seeing that a lot on the other side with Trent. So I don't know what they're doing differently, but they definitely need to kind of correct that. Again, the whole left side has kind of felt a little weird this season, but that's something that hopefully we're trying to solve. I do think Semikis, who came in with an assist today, I do think he's giving him a proper challenge for the position, and I think that is something that we definitely need to look at. I don't know that I would say that Robertson did anything to blow my mind today. He didn't do anything to really screw up. So I'm actually awarding him with a, let me take a look here. I'm actually awarding him with a 6. Is what I'm giving him. So let me come over here, and then I don't even know where I'm supposed to go to paste this next thing, but I'll just do it after I've already come up with it because I think it's going to end up giving this. I think it's going to end up giving the point before I've done it. So let's come down here and let's take a look at Big Verge. Virgil, I thought Van Dyke was a bit casual and despondent today. Didn't seem to have his normal intensity. He did his job. He won plenty of headers and everything else. But he had a one or two casual, if not lazy, passes back that I think could have been pretty bad. Especially one that kind of put Kelleher in a bit of a weird situation. So his intensity was definitely down. And again, I don't know if it's felt that way a bit this season. He's not really commanding the back line as much. I don't know if there's been a bit of a dip because with him being out, Robertson kind of filled in terms of kind of commanding that back line because Gomez wasn't there. When he plays with Motm, there's not as much that he has to say. So I think he just needs to find his voice again. And really just kind of step back into some really good, performances. He's had moments where he'll get in like a little tiny funk. He did it actually at the tail end of the season. At the tail end of the season when we won the league. I mean, the last few games there, he really made some mistakes, and it seemed to just kind of get compounded until we brought it back in. So for him, and let me see if it's actually gonna. Let's try it real quick here. Let's copy, and then we're just gonna. Yeah, we'll just paste here. All right. So for him, I'm going to do pretty much the same thing. I'm not too impressed by him or anything else, and I think maybe I'm actually being overly fair in this, but I'm going to go ahead and give him a 6 as well. So we're going to give a 6 to Virgil Van Dyke. I don't think he did anything just absolutely horrific or anything else. So let's do a copy, and then we'll go here, and I'll have this kind of sorted out the next time we do this so that I feel a lot better about it. All right, Ibrahim Ganate. So Ganate is kind of a funky one. I'd say his talent is bipolar in a sense. It really is. He's working on the polar opposites of the spectrum when it comes to his athleticism and then also kind of his focus because Joe Gomez, for example, it just took an over-the-top ball to kind of put him into fucking no man's land, and he was just Batman and couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. And that's always kind of been the bad part of Gomez's game. Otherwise, he's fairly decent. With Konate, he was making some very smart decisions today. He was stepping up, and I think he was cutting out some through balls from time to time, getting in the way. He was very physical, but then other times he just shut off completely. He got 1 minute he'd get bodied off of something, in the goal that came across. From every angle I've looked at, it looks as though if he was a bit more aggressive, maybe slid into it or dropped down, it looked like he definitely could have gotten it. But I think he just got relaxed. I think he just assumed that Verge, who at the time was in between two Shrew players, two Shrews, he was in between two Shrews, and he was trying to cover the one, but didn't quite know which one the ball was going to go to, and obviously Kelleher in that scenario as well. It's just I think Konate just shut down, and I feel like if Motm had been in there, I think he would have certainly had that covered. I think that will come with time and experience. So I'm not slatting the young man and saying, hey, he's just off the mark. But I do not think that this was his most impressive performance, and in fact, felt like he was at fault for that goal and was kind of our looser one. So I'm going to actually give him a 5. May seem a bit harsh, but I'm going to give him a 5 on the day. So let me come over here, and we're going to come back to. Let's come back to Mr. Bradley here. So Mr. Bradley, a lot of people enjoy and have been enjoying Connor Bradley. They have been. Let me actually get all of this stuff down so I can get this shit off the screen once I actually do it. A lot of people have been enjoying Bradley's play. I think he's done. Which one is this one? Is that one? Yeah. So I really feel like he's done. A fairly good job. In his play so far. I'd kind of, in speaking to him, I think he was much better in the second half. He definitely found his feet, got into the game. He was much better, but in the first half, he was just far too easy to play. And I think that when Fabinho would be a bit more advanced because, he's kind of playing, he was kind of the Lord Commander of that midfield there. So as the younglings, moved about, which is no disrespect, but as they moved about, Fabinho had a very, very, very big job to do today. But I felt like Bradley got beat out too much, and I think that that's part and parcel as to why Konate got pulled. and simply, excuse me, good Lord, this LaCroix over here. I think it's in that scenario where he just kind of failed to, you know, failed to see the danger as far as that. So, he did come into the game, got more comfortable. I think he needs a bit more work on his passing and his outlet balls. He's not, I think Nico does have the advantage over him. Obviously, Trent has the advantage over that. But whereas I think Nico, Nico's got a few things to correct, but I think Nico's far further along in his development than I think that Bradley is. But again, I think if he can he makes good decisions, he steps up, he makes good tackles, or at least did in this game. I think in the near future, I think that he's going to, be a big player for someone. And I'll leave it at that. I don't think he's really gonna. I don't think he's really gonna break into the first team much, outside of just kind of filling the void here. That being said, I don't think I don't really feel like kind of putting him on par. I think that I think he was a little bit better, but I still wasn't that impressed by his performance. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a 5.5 for him, and then I'm gonna drag this little puppy down here, which is taking up all this little space. Maybe I'll make it a skosh smaller. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give him a 5.5 on that. And then let's go ahead and duplicate, and then we'll figure it out. So I'm giving him a 5.5. So now we're going to move up and over to Mr. Motm here. Motm is another player. Again, hard to tell with him. My feelings are kind of up in the air. I think he does some good things. I think he does some real wonky shit. He works hard, and he has very good positioning from time to time. He's got a fair footballing mind. Passing very similar to Bradley. His passing is shit, and he needs to work on it. That's the one thing. It's not so much can you win the tackle, it's can you quickly pass it off and not just give it right back to the opposition. Because a lot of times when you win the tackle and you go to pass it out, you're out of the play now. And so you're out of the play whether it's a good pass, whether it's a bad pass, because of how your body is. Maybe you're leaning, your balance is off. But unfortunately, in many of these scenarios, both he and Bradley would make the pass out after winning a tackle and would play it to the other team, but then they themselves were not in the position to be able to pick it back up. Or in trying to retrieve it, they would run so far out of position, it was just weird. So, for him, I really don't, again, I don't think we'll see, too much first team action from him. Again, that's not really a slight or a negative. It's just, I don't, really, I think he'll be working to kind of go into a loan, which I think would be very beneficial for him. And so really for me on the day, he's also a 5.5. And again, maybe too harsh, for sure, maybe too harsh, and I feel bad, but not really. So, that's kind of the whole shebang here. So let's go ahead and do this real quick. So we'll come back. So Fabinho for me, he was everywhere. I mean, I feel like it's not like he was. I'm not going to claim that it was a perfect game, by any means, but he just had such a big job to do today. He really did. I mean, he was kind of, especially in light of players like Van Dyke, players like Robertson kind of doing, and even Fabinho. Fabinho's not been in his greatest run of form lately. In the Prem, he's been kind of lagging behind a bit. So I felt like this for him was a big game. Obviously, again, we fully understand that we were playing a League One opponent that is not even performing too well. I think they're 15th in their league. But at the same time, I thought, given the support that he had around him, I thought he was where he needed to be. Obviously, he gets 2 goals on the day, one an unfortunate penalty for the Shrews because their player kept his hand. I've never seen somebody in the box just fucking flailing the way this guy did. Oh, you can still see me in the other cam. But I've never seen somebody just straight flailing the way that this man did. So in that regard, unfortunate for the Shrews, great for us. I thought his penalty kick was very, very, very composed. And I don't know why, but I guess for whatever reason, I just was not expecting it. So for his role, for his position, for what he did, and everything else, I'm giving Fabinho an 8. As I ruin his name, which I've never done before until now. But I am giving Fabinho an 8. I think it was, I think he did a very, very good job on the day, and I think he did everything that we needed him to do. And I think he showed some passion and stuff that had been lacking for a bit. I'm going to quickly move through the next one. Dixon Bonner. Was he in the game? I don't really know. 1 minute he's obviously on the right, and then for whatever reason when we made this substitution, we decided to move him into the left. Again, I think he's got potential in terms of movement and skill. At the very least, he was one of the few that would try to cut in and try something on the inside every once in a while. But aside from that, his passing was atrocious. He got forced off the ball too easily, and he's really kind of the type of player that I really don't see him moving forward. This is going to be probably the harshest one of the day in terms of what I'm kind of awarding out, and that is going to be a 4.5. I just thought. Let me actually fix this real quick. I just thought he was completely out of his element, and is a player that I would certainly. Not that they're listening to me, but that I would certainly encourage Klopp to try to go out and get a loan for like ASAP, because he was just not great, not great at all. So let's go back up to the top. Curtis Jones. Okay, Jones is always extremely composed. He really is. He's got this maturity level that I think you see with Trent. It's not quite where Trent's is, but they both have this. They're such quiet and composed young gentlemen, but they have this kind of underwriting attitude, this chip that I think just, especially with Trent, just comes from, it just comes from being a Scouser. Like, I've never been there, but because, when I started watching Liverpool, it was because I felt like the town and the city spoke so much to the identity of my own town and city in many ways, which, again, was a city in transition, is a city that's trying to figure itself out after years of being something, and then that industry kind of... and then you're trying to figure it out. Again, I think that he shows a level of maturity that is admirable, and I think that it is understandable that he's at a bit of a different level entirely than some of his, some of the other academy players that stepped in today. I think, Curtis is one that will definitely be that depth player that we're talking about. Again, I don't think that he had the best game today, but I do feel like once we shifted Dixon Bonner over there, he was kind of asked to play a bit more of a deeper role, and I think that at the very least he was actually very active on the day. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to give him a 6.5, which I thought was well deserved for him on the day. What's this? I'm going to mess it up because I always... Is it Voltman? Yeah, Voltman. Voltman was the next player. Again, I think it kind of speaks for itself that he was a little bit out of his element. I think it speaks for itself that we brought in Taki right after halftime and brought Minamino into that. I felt like Klopp was probably just identifying that we needed a bit more quality up top, and that we needed him to make way for what we believe that quality to be. So I'm not going to hover on him too long. He's going to get a 4.5 as well. I know I'm such a mean and horrible man, but that's what he's going to get, a 4.5, and he sees his way off the pitch. So now we move over to Cade Gordon, Cade Gordon, honestly, if it hadn't been for, yeah, I mean, I might say that had it not been for Fabinho's performance early on, and had it really, once you saw some of the seniors come in, I think he might have been my man of the match had it not been for, had it not been for Fabinho being on the pitch. I felt like Fabinho just did the job that he was supposed to do. But I will say that I thought that Cade was a bit sharp. I don't think he's ready. I don't think he's ready to obviously fall into a position where you say, okay, we don't really need somebody on the right-hand side. Obviously, we've got Harvey Elliott, who hopefully is coming back soon, and so I don't really know if you kind of shift Harvey Elliott to play harder. If we can get Bellingham in the summer, we'd be good to go. So I don't know if that leaves room for Cade, but I think that he's doing a lot for himself in terms of showing what type of player he can be, so that he either goes out and gets a pretty awesome loan deal, somewhere and gets some of that real experience, or maybe he just kind of stays and tries to see, what he can do. So again, for him, I thought it was probably one of it was his best performance. He notched his first senior goal. So in doing so, I don't see how we don't, obviously, good God, I don't see how we don't obviously give him some kudos there. I don't really like how that looks at all. I'm going to go back up there and fix it. It's not like it really matters, because it's just for this, but it's just really gross. I still don't like how it looks, but whatever. We'll figure out like a better looking format and stuff for that after the fact. So anyway, everybody, basically the guys that come in, Semikis, I felt like he's put in a good shift. I think for the first time in a long time, Liverpool finally have a really good left back option to cover Robertson, and one that if Robertson has to go out for something, then we feel like we may in time be just as competitive, especially when you have players that kind of have that dip. Norris, don't really know anything about him. Didn't see enough of him to say anything. Frauendorf came in. I thought his movement was fairly good for the several seconds and minutes that I even was able to pay attention to him. But I thought, he looked a bit bright. Be interested to see what he looks like. We did not get to see Mabaya. Motm is stayed on the bench, which I think was the right decision. And then Taki Minamino comes in. Now, what I will say for Taki Minamino is, and I said it in my other video, I feel like it's an now or never. I really do. I feel like with Salah, Mane, and Keita being gone, I think he's going to be called upon, frequently. Obviously, I think you're going to see Jota and Firmino as well. But I think this is really his chance. And I think if he doesn't seize it and doesn't do it, then I think he's kind of going to go the way of the Shaqiri, where he's either going to kind of languish on the bench with very, very few opportunities, or I think that we're going to try to see if we can't loan him out or offload him again. And I only say that because he was just bad. He's just bad. I mean, in certain games he's come in, he's scored, but these were positions that he got in. Granted, he had to get in the position, but he got in these positions, and then very, very, very quickly, the ball was played to him on a platter, and I don't really see how you can miss. That being said, last week would call that into question because we missed a hell of a lot of sitters, but I'm just saying that for me, he's just not been good enough. When we saw him, with RB, he seemed very snappy, he seemed very with it, and he scored a goal from distance, and I've just not seen that quality there. Maybe they see it in training, and I'm not, arguing for Klopp, but what I'm saying is that I think the patience of the fan base is or should be wearing thin as it relates to him. So I think this is a very, very big time for him. If he comes out and if he can kind of really, assert himself, then I think he'll do he'll do a wonderful job. But aside from that, my man of the match for today is, and I think it's no surprise given the player ratings, is Fabinho. I think he was awesome. I think he did a wonderful job. I think he was a great, I think he was a great shepherd of the ball when he needed to be. I noticed numerous times where Bradley might have been out of position where he was tracking back, or Ganate had kind of worked forward and he was doing it. And I think he's bought in. I think he fully understands the role. I think he took pride in the position today, and I think he was kind of our leader really among the men and boys today. So he is my man of the match. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Let me know what you think about these ratings. Do you think that I'm being too harsh? Do you think that I'm being too forgiving, especially in a game in which we won? I just think, again, you don't want the game itself and the results, the 4-1, to kind of paper over all the cracks that we know exist, because, again, despite the fact that I'm making fun of at the bottom, Arsenal, I feel like we're definitely going to get a hell of a lot more of a competition and fight from them coming up here soon in the first leg of the Carabao. So with that, I appreciate it. Please, like, comment, subscribe, do all the things that you know to do if you're interested. I appreciate it, and we'll touch base soon. Take care and have a good one.